How you doing, guys? This is Mark Sherry. I just want to do a little breakdown of how I got all my percussion together for my brand new single. It's called Music of the Earth and it's out just now on Beatport. I've been getting quite a lot of questions about how I put my percussion together and my bass lines, and just to get that kind of real tech trance drive and sound in the tech trance tracks that I do. So this is really the first kind of production breakdown that I've ever done, so pay attention. Hopefully you can learn something. If not, then it might still be quite interesting for you anyway. So first of all, I've got the breakdown of the bass lines at the top. I always clump everything together. I've got my kick drum at the top and then all the different bass line layers just sitting underneath that. Then obviously moving down, I go into all the different types of percussion. The kind of blue and turquoise stuff is usually, I colour code my stuff: closed hats, open hats, hand claps. All the kind of typical 909 percussion is usually kind of clumped together, and it's usually light blue. And then I've got all the techno style loops, which I usually keep as orange. Any kind of organic sounding drum loops, whether it's like a techno loop or some kind of industrial loop. Colour coding your tracks also really just helps. It means you can you can have a quick look at your track and see what's doing what. It just kind of groups things together, keeps things quite tidy, and I suppose makes things a little bit faster for you when you're working through your tracks. So okay, at the top then we've got a pretty standard kick drum. I'll just solo that up. Just nice and punchy. There's a couple of kick drums in there. They've been processed together. Then I'm moving down. We've got the sub bass. I'll just take the kick drum back off so you can hear the bass on its own. Again, quite standard because it's the sub bass. It's the one that kind of gives you the real power, sitting underneath the kick drum. Then I start to layer things up. I've got a little Hallian sample here which I used just to double on top. It's doing the exact same pattern as the sub bass. Now with that one, I've trimmed the bass right off of that so that it doesn't phase or clash with the sub bass. So if you put those in together, there's absolutely nothing clashing in there at all. Then moving down, we've got another one here, the Salem bass, which again is the exact same pattern, but I think I've actually panned this one slightly to the left. Yep, you can see I've actually panned that just 23 to the left. And the one underneath that, I'm sure the Nexus bass, I've actually panned that as well. Let me just check. Nope, that one's actually centered. I think it's this one. Okay, I'm talking rubbish. I've got the Predator bass. It's actually panning from left to right. The Nexus bass is centered. Silent bass is slightly left. It's actually this hollow bass that's panned slightly to the right. And we've got the sub bass and the kick drum. We'll just bring them all in together. So we get a really nice kind of bass sound there. That all the basses are working well together. It's basically like a big a kind of sandwich that you've made. All your different frequencies are covered. The Serum saw here. Just again, basically quite a typical saw sound, but I've got a nice flanger on that. And if you bring that in with the rest of the basses and kicks, it gives you a really, really driving tech trance sound. Right, so that's the kick and bass lines done. If we go move down to the percussion, I've got my typical kind of 909 closed hats. As you can see, I've trimmed the bass right off of those. I've got my Fab filter on there as well. Just a slight boost in the tops. I'll take that away. I've got some more kind of techie closed hats. Now these are also 909 hats, but they've got distortion on them, and they're playing a slightly different pattern from the closed hats. Now, unfortunately, in this track, I've actually bounced everything down to audio, so I don't really have anything as MIDI at this point. It's all in audio. So if I play these two closed hats together, you get a really nice techie pattern as well. Then hand claps, again standard hand claps, one on every second beat. Now on there I've got overdrive, which I use in so much stuff within Cubase. It's a brilliant little plugin, just helps to really drive the top end. You can, obviously the bass, mid and highs. I don't really use it, like, it's very subtle, but it just makes your percussion sound really nice and crispy. Just helps it all cut through the mix. Arts Acoustic, I absolutely love this reverb. I've been using this since like 2000, 2001. I also use other reverbs, but this one's just really good for percussion. Bionic Delay, it's a free plugin, very easy to use. I've used this loads and loads over the years. And again, Fab Filter is basically my go-to plugin for filtering. So if you play that together with the claps, you get a really nice sound. Now I don't have much reverb on there, I don't have much delay on there, because if you start to add too much reverb and delay, you just end up with a really, really muddy mix. So, you know, imagine every single channel you hear just now, imagine you had reverb and delay on every single channel. It's just going to sound hellish. It's so when you're putting reverb on your percussion and delays, just keep things really simple. Just add things in very gently, and then obviously when it comes to the mix down parts, if you're bouncing percussion down to audio, then you can maybe trim things back a little bit and just mix things as you go. But as I said, don't put too much reverb and delay on every percussion channel, because you really don't need it. These close hats are actually, I think they're pretty much dry. A slight room plate reverb on the closed hats, and the same with these ones. In fact, these ones are actually dry. These techie ones are actually completely dry, bone dry. But it's these ones that have got a slight reverb on them. Now I've got some fast close hats which basically sit on the beat. So as you can see, I layer up my percussion. I've got three similar closed hats. Now these aren't the same sounds, they're very slightly different to each other, but when you play them all together you get a really nice crisp sound. And also some of these hats are panned. So I've got, wait a minute, that one's centered. These ones here, you can see I've actually got these panned to the right by 50. And these claps are usually always centered, unless I've actually layered the claps. Sometimes when I layer claps, I've got one in the left, one in the right, but these have actually been bounced down. I think there was actually maybe 2 claps playing this one. And these open hats are basically just, again, 909 hats, nice and clean. Very small amount of, there's a plate reverb on the open hats and a very slight delay, which you can probably hear, hopefully. So if I play all these together, you get a really nice, crunchy 909 style percussive loop. Okay, so I'll bring this in with some of the bass lines as well, just let you hear the mix so far. Okay, so that's sounding good. Now moving down, this is where things, for me, this is the part of my tracks that I always spend the most amount of time on. This is how you get some really, really cool tech trance grooves going on. Now, I don't hear everybody doing this in their tracks, but for me, this is one of the most important elements of my kind of style of tech trance. For me, this is where the magic happens. it takes me usually quite, I sometimes spend like 2 or 3 days going round in circles working on these kind of parts. So I've got this first techno loop, which I've obviously made out of different drum loops. I've added delays, chopped things around and stuff, but this was one that I've bounced down. It's quite subtle. Bringing in the next one, quite subtle again. Bringing in the next one. I've got an extra clap loop. So for me, like something like this loop, this really makes your track stand out when you've got like a really cool techno loop just really punching through the mix. So as you can see, that I've just got really small amount of effects on this. I've just got like a small boost here, just below the 2K mark, just to help it punch through the mix. I use N12. This URS N12 EQ is amazing. You can see I've just basically cut the low end right off of that up until 110 Hz, because you cannot hear any of these frequencies. You cannot hear in the mix. So every single drum loop, every single drum sound you have in your mix, just trim away the frequencies that you don't hear when the kick and the bass line's in, because it's absolutely pointless having them in there, because everything just muddies up your frequency range in the tracks. You can see I've got a small boost there. Small boost at 700 Hz, just to help this drum loop cut through, but every drum loop is different. So if you play all these together, I'll just bring in the 909 stuff as well. You get a really cool groove. So there you go, that's how I created the kick drum and the bass, kick and bass parts, and also the drum loops as well for Music of the Earth. Moving down here further, I've got some little techno stabs which I brought in. So they're really cool. I've got a nice panning effect on that. I've got an ARP here which I think was from Salem. Underneath that I've got a gate which I think was from Silent as well, or maybe Spire actually. Below that, on the Silent VST, I've started to introduce part of the lead melody sound. So this comes in and starts to filter in here. Okay, so let's move things past this then. Moving on to the next 8 bars, I've got the rides. I've got some really nice 909 rides which I've got some saturation on here, overdrive and saturation, just to give it a real good kind of techno-y sound. There's no sidechain on that, no LFO, just nice and punchy, right bang on the offbeat, and that just really helps the groove as well. Okay guys, well that's the first part of this track. I'm going to break down the rest of it for you, but this is the main kind of guts of the track, the main groove part. So coming up in part 2, we'll move things along to the breakdown, and I'll show you how I've layered all the sounds together for the lead part and the breakdown, the main breakdown section. Alright guys, I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers!